Great progress. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Back to 10-minute calls.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, I spent the day in my electorate with Russia's David Frost and a television crew, visiting all manner of productive primary sector activity in the Wairarapa, in preparation for a television film that will be shown in Russia around the Prime Minister's visit when he goes to Vladivostok at the end of the month, or in the middle of next month. And, Mr. Speaker, I've got to say to you that we were on a dairy farm and talking to the cocky, and I said, well, how do you think things are going? He said, really well, Mr. Speaker. He said that he had great confidence in John Key, and his exact words to me were, because John Key knows what he's doing. And I've got to tell you, he said to me, the other people don't. He said, I will be supporting National at the next election because National knows what it's doing. And I thought, there's one farmer who knows what's very sensible and what's good for this country, because he knows that we have to invest in the primary sector because that's what this country, where it has a competitive advantage. And doing that will stimulate new jobs. He knows that in the Wairarapa, for example, we've got to save our winter water and feed it out in the summer when it's dry. And we don't want to take 6 years or longer going through the resource management complications that this government left us with, or the previous government, the Labor Party, left us with, because every day we wait, we're locking up jobs. We're stopping people being employed. We need to build a more competitive and productive economy. And the budget that we have just passed this year forecasts economic growth to average about 3% a year over the next 4 years. That means 154,000 jobs created on top of the new 60,000 new jobs created in the past 2 years. And if Mr. Gross is successful in getting free trade agreements with India, with Korea, with Japan, with Russia, then we will continue to expand the opportunities for employing people. Because, let me explain to that member, that once we signed the China-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement, in the first year we sold an additional $850 million of product in the first year. In this year under review, Mr. Speaker, we have sold an additional $3.35 billion worth of produce to China. And think about how many jobs exist because of that new level of export. Gross is doing a great job, and I commend him for it. The government's responsible fiscal management, and in particular our discipline around spending, no new expenditure, no new borrowing, and our capital management is strengthening New Zealand's resilience in what I think are still very difficult times. We do not know whether Spain is going to fall over, and if it does, whether Italy will follow. There's still uncertainty out there. What we have to be careful to do, and this is what John Key is doing, he is maintaining New Zealand's international credibility, a status that is very hard won but very easily lost, as a number of countries around the world are finding out. He's helping every one of my constituents through his astute fiscal management, because we are keeping interest rates low, and their mortgage rates have never been lower, not in my lifetime. They've never been lower. They've gone from 21%, as I recall, under a Prime Minister Longy, and we're now down at 5.7%. But we are also getting growth in New Zealand, which is forecast to be higher than many other nations. New Zealand is only 0.25% of the world economy, so we're affected by what goes on in the rest of the world. The good news is I think that if we continue to do things right under John Key's leadership, we can stand out from a large pack. And we already are. Growth in New Zealand over the next 3 years is forecast to be higher than Europe by 0.5%, the UK just over 1% growth, Japan 1.5%, and the US and Canada 2%. New Zealand is expected to have around the same growth rates as Australia, around about 3%. That is because growth in New Zealand would be based on strong fundamentals, as I was told by a dairy farmer in Masterton yesterday. Mr. Speaker, we have strong fundamentals. We have sound economic and financial institutions. We're producing the sort of goods and products and providing the sort of services that will be in demand over the coming decades. This is why companies like Xero are doing so well on the stock exchange. Xero, partly invented in Greytown in the Wairarapa, has done extremely well on the stock market this year, going from about $2 a share to about $5.50. Why is that happening? Because this is a company that is based on the internet. How is it doing well? Because we've spent $1.5 billion out across New Zealand building a decent internet. These are the sort of things and the sort of services that are going to be in demand over coming decades. 60% of our exports now go to Australia or to Southeast Asia. In particular, the most vibrant and thriving regions of the world. We are moving our resources from Europe, where traditionally we've spent effort in promoting our exports, and now we're spending much more effort trying to grow our export drive in Asia, because that is where the economies are growing quickly in the global place. The fact that we're also managing the economy and the government's finances and providing stable government in tough economic times and building a more competitive and productive economy based on savings and in productive investment is being monitored by agencies external to New Zealand. If you go and have a look at Standard & Poor's, they are affirming a AA rating with a stable outlook for New Zealand. And that's really welcome news, and I think confirms independently that we are headed in the right direction and are better placed than many other countries. Mr. Speaker, affirming New Zealand's long-term foreign currency rating on 3rd of August, Standard & Poor's noted that this country's fiscal flexibility, resilient economy and strong political and economic institutions would stand it in very good stead. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand is one of only 9 countries with the highest possible AA rating and a stable outlook. And that's with Moody's, but it has a AA rating with Fitch. Standard & Poor's notes that New Zealand has favourable prospects for sustained growth, while there remains strong demand for agricultural exports. The government, Mr. Speaker, is making progress in getting its own deficits and debt under control, and it's on track for a fiscal surplus in 2014. But New Zealand's level of high private sector debt is its biggest vulnerability, according to the external agents. Mr. Speaker, we have got a very resilient economy. This country has got extremely competent government management in the form of John Key and Bill English. This is recognised. You might laugh, Mr. Williams, but I can tell you it is strongly recognised in the Wairarapa, and that's why you're sitting here leaderless, because your leader is not being sensible. Where is your leader, Mr. Williams? Where is Mr. Williams? And on Planet Labour, you can impose all the economic development you like and then pretend you can have more jobs. Well, that's fairy tale stuff. It doesn't exist. Labour wants to slow down New Zealand's development for its own political reasons, Mr. Speaker. The simple reality is that my constituents are telling me in the Wairarapa we need more higher paying jobs in this country, because they want to support families, they want decent public services that are world class, and Tony Ryle is delivering that, and it helps people make their future in this country, not abroad. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to support this bill.
Mr. Chairman,
The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
well, I'd like to thank Dr Doolittle for